Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have two articles in this episode for you, and both the URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. This, I guess we could call the health episode. Both these articles are off of Natural News, and the first one here says, low-quality food has destroyed the bodies of millennials. Bowel cancer explodes in young generation. A new study shows an alarming trend in bowel cancer. Millennials, or those born between 1980 and 1995, have 4 times the likelihood of developing rectal tumors originating in the large intestine than those born in the 50s. Young people also have a double risk of colon tumors, and this is being blamed on poor diets and lack of exercise. Experts like American Cancer Society's Dr. Rebecca Siegel are calling for educational campaigns and earlier screenings, as well as a stronger emphasis on active lifestyles and healthy eating. Diseases like bowel cancer, also known as colorectal cancer, have traditionally been associated with the elderly, but an affinity for unhealthy food has led to an epidemic in younger people. A shift in the general population's eating habits towards a diet that is low in fiber and high in processed meat, such as sausage and bacon, is believed to be one of the main culprits. In 2014, study predicted that bowel cancer would skyrocket by 90% in people aged 20 to 34 by the year 2030. It has gotten so bad that 3 out of every 10 people diagnosed with the disease in this country are younger than 55. It is double the number recorded in 1990. Part of the problem is that this age group is not routinely subjected to screening that middle-aged adults get, which has cut the rates in that age group. Colorectal cancer encompasses malignancies in the rectum or colon. They typically start as growths called polyps on an inner wall. Most of these are benign, but some can turn into cancer over time. According to the American Cancer Society, more than 135,000 new cases of the two diseases are expected to be diagnosed this year, and around 50,000 people will die from the illness. Doctors stress that the overall incidence in young people is still very low despite the rise. People who experience the symptoms such as bowel movement habit changes or rectal bleeding do not usually end up having the disease, but it is important for them to follow up with their doctors if the problem doesn't resolve. Given this alarming rise, young people should do all they can to help prevent this disease, which is highly influenced by lifestyle factors. Researchers from the Imperial College of London illustrated how colorectal cancer is actually one of the most preventable types of cancer, with around 45% of cases believed to be preventable by following dietary recommendations like eating less meat, consuming high-fiber plant foods, exercising, and curbing alcohol consumption. Processed meat is particularly dangerous, increasing the risk by 2 times as much as red meat. In fact, it is a good idea to provide all varieties of processed food because page jumped. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. In fact, it is a good idea to avoid all varieties of processed food because it is difficult to know what sort of chemicals they contain. A study of Georgia State University revealed that some of the most popular emulsifiers found in processed food cause the inflammation that leads to the formation of cancer cells. They also change the balance of the bacteria in the gut in a way that encourages the growth of cancer cells. The presence of these emulsifiers is not always obvious when you read the ingredient labels. So the safest choice is foregoing these foods altogether and sticking with homegrown, homemade foods. The message is clear. Deadly disease like colorectal cancer are not something that only older people need to worry about. Young people need to establish healthy habits as early as possible, and this includes exercising regularly, avoiding processed foods, and limiting their alcohol intake if they want to avoid becoming another statistic. Another article I have here from Natural News says EPA and FDA give a go-ahead for 3 types of GMO potatoes. Planting begins this year. So apparently, if it's not bad enough that they're poisoning us with all this processed food, they're going to ruin our vegetables as well. So let's read this. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, and the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. I mean, these two agencies that are supposed to be looking out for us and keeping us healthy, right? Okay, we've got that. Have given permission to Idaho-based agribusiness giant J.R. Simplot Company to begin the spring planting and fall harvesting of 3 different types of genetically modified potatoes. Simplot says that the varieties are genetically engineered to resist the pathogen associated with late blight, the disease responsible for the Irish potato famine. The GMO potatoes are also modified to keep them from turning brown when sliced, to be resistant to bruises and black spots, and to have a longer storage life. The company also says that the GMO potato varieties will produce less acrylamide and chemical or a chemical thought to cause cancer when fried. This supposed advantage has prompted Simplot to make the highly suspicious claim that these are actually cancer-fighting potatoes. My God, they'll tell you anything. These 3 varieties, Russet Burbank, Ranger Russet, and Atlantic, which were previously approved by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, have now been classified as safe to eat and safe for the environment, despite the testimony of the FDA's own scientists calling into question the safety of GMOs in general. Since at least 1992, the FDA has been lying by saying that there is an overwhelming consensus among scientists that GMOs are safe and that there has been sufficient data to back their claim. Stephen Drunker, a lawyer representing a coalition of nonprofit organizations, was able to successfully sue the FDA, forcing the release of declassified documents regarding GMOs. The documents Drunker obtained clearly show that the FDA ignored the safety warnings of its own scientists and covered up all the evidence that GMOs were unsafe. And there's a link that you can click on to read that evidence if you want to. In the YouTube video below, and there is a video here, watch from 46.55 minutes to find out what was the declassified FDA document. There has been very little in the mainstream press regarding the approval of these new GMO potato varieties, other than an Associated Press piece being run in all major news outlets. And the AP story essentially parrots the official lie that there is no evidence that genetically modified organisms known as GMOs are unsafe to eat. This is from the Associated Press. It says there's no evidence that genetically modified organisms known as GMOs are unsafe to eat. But for some people, altering the genetic code of foods presents an ethical issue. McDonald's continues to decline to use Simplot's genetically engineered potatoes for its French fries. Simplot often notes the potatoes contain only potato genes, not DNA from unrelated organisms. Organisms that contain DNA from an unrelated organism are defined as transgenic. According to a statement from Non-GMO Project, that last sentence is highly misleading. There is a growing attempt on the part of biotechnology companies to distance themselves from the consumer rejection of GMOs by claiming that new types of gender engineering are not actually genetic engineering. In other words, Simplot is saying that because the genetic material used in the modification comes from other potatoes, then it doesn't count as genetically modified and therefore is safe to eat. Both claims are patently false, as Linda Kale, PhD, and FDA compliance officer, wrote in one of the declassified documents. Here's the quote. The process of genetic engineering and traditional breeding are different, and according to the technical experts in the agency, they lead to different risks. The FDA cannot be trusted to protect the public from harm. They sold out to the GM industry long ago. And since there will be no label warning consumers of potatoes and other foods that contain GMOs, the only way to protect yourself is to buy buy products labeled as organic and GMO free, or better yet, grow them yourself. If you don't want to eat zombie fries, you should avoid buying potatoes labeled as Russet Burbank, Ranger Russet, or Atlantic. One of the best ways to fight the GM industry is to identify their products and simply not buy them. if there's no demand for frankentators, they won't stay on the market for long. And if you want to know more about it, there's a link here called GMO News that you can go to read more on GMO foods. So that's all I have in this episode. More to follow. If you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up. Don't be afraid to let me know. Share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news and try to stay healthy. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. That way you'll stay informed. See you in the next episode.